Coming in.
Now, starting at center, he's number 32 in your programs, number 1 in your heart, Joshua Emery.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you.
That's your sick cold open.
And Dan Nickel.
He played left out.
Left out.
We can talk about that later. No, but hey, second episode, pretty good parent. Welcome to it. And our first episode, we talked about de-escalation, Josh.
Yeah,
and I do want to say that first. I'd like to say thank you because I use some de-escalating techniques. So literally, we talked about the 7-year-old.
Yeah.
When the 7-year-old can't.
A 7-year-old.
Any 7-year-old can't comprehend anything. Guess what I did? I did exactly what you said. I pretended to be a little snake on the floor, and I just kind of wiggled around.
Yes.
And she was like, "What the hell are you doing?" Well, she didn't say what the hell.
Yeah.
But she was like,
thinking.
She literally goes, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Just plain as day.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Those are words. Those are words." And so
broke the trance.
It was awesome. Then we did she kind of came over to see what I was doing, and I just held her for I don't know, a couple minutes. And then she completely calmed down and then was just fine.
That's
so it was
great.
Awesome.
Good.
So,
yeah.
But then fast forward to today.
We're doing victories and losses.
Apparently.
Okay.
Because
listener loss.
Then I'm like, hey, we got to do this podcast. I got to get everything ready. Josh is going to be here in 30 minutes. Urgency. And just the most random thing. It's like, hey, guys, you want to help with the dishes? Sure. 2 kids start doing it. Third one, 7-year-old's like, no, and it was just no communication. It just broke down, right? And then I was like, well, I don't have time for de-escalation.
No snake.
So, yeah, I don't have time to do the
just
snake
duct tape.
Floor, so yeah. But I was stoked that. So
good.
Yeah, if you want to learn more about it, go hear our first episode on de-escalation. It was thanks a lot. It's great tips.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to hear.
So what are we talking about today, Joshua?
Yeah, today we're going to drift from like a 30,000 foot view down to ground level, going from a philosophical discussion of what are you really trying to achieve in your parenting. So like if I asked you, what do you want for your children?
D1 scholarships. Is that too soon?
Yeah. So that's honest. That's an honest answer for parents.
I think a lot of people probably think about things
and
like
so,
that. Like,
what do you want for your kids?
Accolades.
Boom. I want them to be successful. Oh, okay. What does successful mean? I want them to be happy. I want them to play college sports. I want them whatever, right? And often we find ourselves parenting. It's easy for a parent to be parenting like unconsciously outside the lines of this is what you wanted for your kids. But you said you want this for your kids, but you're parenting like this, right? So, for example, a lot of parents would say, I want my kids to be happy. Like, oh, okay. Well, how do you parent? How do you parent happiness, right? Very few parents that I've ever worked with or even know actually set out to like instill, model, teach, invoke, grow happiness. It's take care of the day. Be a good person, be disciplined, obey. Those things generally aren't the sources of happiness. Now, if those are drastically out of line, happiness might be compromised. But the question, and we'll use you, because you said D1 scholarships for your kids. That doesn't seem too far off from a reality. Or strong aspirations for them to be their best in some areas that they've expressed interest in, right? So,
well, I'm also just sort of a cheap bastard, so I'm kind of like, I don't want to
this is really,
I want them to
pay
really
for savings.
I just want them to pay for their own college.
Well,
no.
But I want to highlight a lot of parents, not surprisingly, end up parenting out of a semi-conscious fear or value or need. For example, like, well, I don't want my kids to end up like myself,
right?
So-and-so or this. So I'm going to try to steer them in this direction because that's horrible over there. I don't want to have to pay for 3 full tuitions for my children. If they can get some scholarships, that ease my tension, right? And you could honestly say that flippantly, but not dismiss it and really parent.
And actually parent like that.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's probably a good call out on me, because I did say that tongue in cheek, but there is probably a little bit of element of like, keep working and be nice. Why don't you guys go figure out a way to get a scholarship, right?
Yeah.
Like, yes.
So let's play out, like, what are maybe examples of how that parenting belief, how that like semi-conscious, semi-approved belief statement, I want my kids to have D1 scholarships. How might that show up in your home? What kind of behavior or drive or reaction do you have if that might be a goal?
Well, I feel like we're really hitting pretty close to home here, Josh.
Oh.
I don't know if I was ready for this. No, I mean, I think
generally speaking,
yeah.
Like what?
But I mean, maybe we step back and say, like, what do you want for your kids, right?
Yeah.
And so if I was going to answer that realistically, I mean, I guess I would say I want them to be happy. I want them to have, I guess, a good life. All these generic things, right? One of those being go to college. I'm a big proponent of college, and I like athletics. A couple of my kids do. Maybe all of them do. I don't know. So I'm like, if you do that and or excel in something, like just be part of a group, a community, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it probably is it's definitely a theme or a subconscious thing,
like a driver.
and then you have all these sort of society check boxes, right? Good grades, good in sports, good in XYZ, right? They say thank you.
Yeah.
They're polite at
good manners,
in front of, in public,
well.
Yeah.
Right.
All those little things, right?
Yeah.
So, so now it's kind of making me think, like, what do I want for my kids, I guess?
Yeah.
I guess I've never really thought about it in that way.
Yeah. We often want for our kids what we want for ourselves, but we also fail to maybe calculate where our own aspirations have been misleading, and how lack of a reward or how unfulfilling some of those pursuits are. Yet we continue to like turn and like propagate them to our kids, right? Like, for example, I know lots of adults through years of counseling that don't like their jobs.
Right.
And they worked hard. They went to college and they moved up the ladder, and they're not happy. But yet they'll turn and give their spiel to the kids how they should do this, this, and this to get a good job to be happy. Mm-hmm. You're like, you're not happy and you have that job. Why do you think your kids are going to like be happy and follow your path?
Yeah.
Right? There's a skill set of like being happy that's not embedded in a job.
Yeah.
Right. And adults, some know this. Most people would be like, yeah, but they don't really buy it. But yet they'll turn and propagate and kind of brainwash the kids. This is happiness. This is success.
So I'm 100% guilty of this, like 100%. So as you know, my dream growing up was to play Major League Baseball. And it was pretty delusional all the way up until I was maybe 20. I still thought I had a chance, right?
Really, hold on.
But I always liked that quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, I believe, just live the life you dream. And so I always thought, hey, that was my dream. I want to live it. And, I tried as hard as I could. Wasn't good. So now my kids and, the older boys have dreams, and it's, they want to play pro sports, right? And I'm like, okay, chances are not good, but still a dream. Yeah. Why not go live the life you want to dream, right? And so definitely we've probably created an environment or I don't know.
A belief system?
I would say a belief system, right? That anything's possible and you can go do it. And I mean, I honestly believe that it is for anybody, right? Sure. That anything's possible, right? And they can work hard and follow their dreams, right? But it's like, how much of that is saying that is the thing that you have to have then to be happy, right? Yeah, and anything else is a failure, right? And so
right. In some senses, happiness is on hold until you get there.
Right.
Right. Not for everybody, but for some. And it's assumed that you just know how to be happy because you've reached that pinnacle of whatever job or sport. But yet everyone knows someone that's reached their ideal level and still isn't happy.
Right.
Right. And we know people that didn't reach pinnacle of anything and are happy. So that's why I say it's philosophical in nature. I'm like, well, don't assume these societal norms of aspirations deliver on what you really want for your kids, evidenced by your own life. Mm-hmm. Right? The parent who bitches and moans about getting up and going to work, but then sits there and convinces their kids they have to do the same path to be happy. Right? And kids see this. They're like, well, I don't want a job. And I listen to you bitch and moan about how horrible the office is or how much you hate your boss. Like, why would I want to get good grades in school and get a job like that?
Do that? Yeah.
Well, because, you got to have options. And, the parent kind of scrambles because they're stuck in this hypocritical kind of a double standard, right?
Right.
So if the question is, what do you want for your kids? As someone who essentially evaluates someone's well-being, right? I would say prioritizing safety, and safety doesn't always mean like physical threat, but like, let's say emotional, relational, physical stability. That's a high priority. Their ability to enjoy life. You could say it's happiness, but it's like, it feels a little bit more bedrock. Feels more gratitude based than just like a
because
party.
like you're not going to be necessarily happy all the time.
Right. That's not fair. And it's a potentially damaging message for kids to feel like they're supposed to be happy all the time. Mm-hmm. Right. I hear parents tell their kids they shouldn't be anxious. They shouldn't have a bad day. Like, what do you have to worry about? Like, all you do is go to school. I make your lunch for you. You get picked up by the bus. Like, you have no idea what blah, 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 blah. You should be happy. And that's a confusing message. If I told you should be happy because your electricity works and your heart works, like, you're like, whoa, now I'm confused. I'm not happy, but Josh says I should be happy, right? But to go for gratitude is a practice, right? It doesn't just pump out of our veins. Like, that is a practice of awareness. To prioritize dishes, grades, accolades is developing a practice of performance-based living, performance-based acceptance. And I'm not making an argument like those things are bad, but if we're looking for like valid our self-worth, mm-hmm. self-acceptance through those things, they're pretty empty, right? Yeah. Like, did the dishes, made $1 million, was captain of the team. Like, okay, great.
Right.
Do you sleep well? What are your relationships like? How often do you get lost in like distracting, worthless thoughts that make you feel really bad? That's where someone's well-being really is evaluated. It's not on the field, on the court, in the classroom, in the boardroom. Like, those are just ways to live. You're like, oh, you might as well. If you're going to like do something, you might as well do something you love.
Right.
But if you're thinking that's going to create love and acceptance, those are entirely different skill sets. And parents don't know that they're not teaching the things that their kids are really going to need to be what they want for their kids. Yeah. Evidenced by their own life. Like, well, do you sleep well? Well, no. And I'm really stressed about this. I got a big report coming up. And, oh, okay, well, what do you think that might be modeling to your kids? Mm-hmm. Are they absorbing how to like laugh, love, release? Or are they indoctrinated into like a super serious, like stuffy adulthood that they don't really want to participate in? So the ask the question, what do you want for your kids, is round one. Like, oh, well, I want them to have D1 scholarships. Oh, why? Well, it would relieve some financial pressure. 2, I think they would like it. Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. How much of your parenting is influenced by that? Versus, you also said you want them to be happy. What if they said, I'm pretty happy, like, not going to school, Dad.
Right.
In fact, like, I like hanging out in dark rooms and playing video games all day.
Right.
And I'd rather not see anybody at all. I have online friends and like, I'm pretty good. Right. Your value system is now going to be in conflict with theirs. And you're like, no, it's the wrong road to go down. Mm-hmm. Right. But if you said you want them to be happy and they're like, Dad, I am so happy. Like, I love what I get to do. It's a challenging parental situation.
Yeah,
that's right.
I mean, how do you balance that conflict of I guess with like that value system so drastically different?
Yeah.
right? And if you feel like that value system could be harmful later in life, right? Like,
Yeah.
like you can see all these studies about how living longer and a lot of that is influenced by community and people having friends and all these things, right?
Absolutely.
And so someone said, hey, I'm so happy just being a recluse, being in my dark room all day long, doing nothing. And you're like, okay, that's cool that you're happy, but are you really happy? And then you start to, and if that just completely goes against your value system, I mean, I think I'm all for people having their own value systems, but when you feel like you're the parent, you're supposed to be modeling and teaching, and theirs is drastically different.
It's really hard, and a lot of parents experience a lot of internal conflict, and the kids could potentially feel a lot of judgment when a kid really likes something different than the parents like, right. And the parents fail to communicate why having an element of discipline is necessary to be happy all the way through life, right? Like, they won't be happy by all measurable standards if they have zero discipline or zero community or zero engagement with nature, right? Like, they're not going to be able to pass the standard test of like, are they well? Are they happy, right? But the extreme is judging what they're doing and saying you can't be happy and you need to do it my way. And when then the kid's like, your way, like, you don't look that happy to me. In fact, my sister, who's super popular in school, she's got tons of drama. She's got all kinds of friends, but there's also a lot of ups and downs and a lot of like tough days. Like, I don't have any of that, right? So there's this balance between a human seems to live a better life with an element of discipline. They don't have to be hyper disciplined, but enough to like take care of their body, take care of their mind, and foster and maintain a decent amount of relationships and be able to do things that challenge their mind. So if that's like academics, if that's creativity, if that's a sport, we can't be prejudiced. We need to be mindful of parenting, that we're not prejudiced against what's the ultimate manifestation of like the things that excite them. Like, my son doesn't like sports. And that's something I grew up with. And it would be like, we talk it, we live it, we breathe it. And so I've had to be very conscious of not putting my prejudice on like what childhood looks like and what challenge looks like and unfairly put that on him, because it just doesn't work. Like, I can't make him, it's not fair for me to try to make him like something that's not essential for living, right? To understand like what's going on in the football game is not necessary to like be a good human. Culturally, it's like favored or unfavorable depending on where you sit. But understanding that I want him to love himself, whatever that looks like. And I want him to not need the approval of others, which is awkward as parents because we're constantly conditioning them to get our approval, right? And then it's like, if they don't get enough of it or they think they always need it, now we create this really bad rut that they're like, well, I need dad's approval. Well, yeah, what if you can't get it? Dad might be dead. Maybe dad's a dick. Maybe he's not going to like tell you what you need to hear. And now their formula they're following like won't deliver what they need.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that can be taught is I want you to like you. I want you to be proud of you. If I'm proud of you, which I am, by the way, and I want to express that often, but it's like icing on the cake. Okay. I don't really want you. And this is age progressive. Okay. Early on, you just say, I'm proud of you because of this.
Like how, like, let's talk ages. Like what?
Yeah. Early as they're able to like comprehend language, you say, I'm proud of you for doing what I asked you to do.
Right.
Okay. But when they start to like have a little bit more abstract thought, right? Like preteen, start using a little bit more language of what makes you proud of you. Like what makes you feel good about yourself? Does it feel good to like know you're supposed to put the dishes away and not? Or does it feel good to get them done? Now, again, how mature they are, they might have a dumb answer or a really insightful answer. But to be modeling what it looks like for them to like themselves is what they'll need to be happy and independent, well-adjusted as an adult. Versus, I'm going to breed you to seek my approval. Now I build a habit of like they need to go make other people happy to feel good about themselves. And I work with tons of adults that have that dynamic Everyone to some extent has a little bit of that, right? But to be trained unintentionally or unconsciously to go seek the approval of your parent and then never transition out of that, right? There's not like you're 17, you're 18. Now my approval of you doesn't matter.
Right.
No one has a ceremony to like
to be like, I'm done
approving of you. You need to like yourself.
Yeah.
I love you and accept you regardless.
Right.
But you need to find ways to be approving of yourself. That doesn't mean you can't say I'm not proud of you. That doesn't mean they don't receive it and benefit from it. But it's like the core of the bucket that they're trying to fill is they don't need the approval of others. And that's an awkward transition to get out of when we do need to teach them kind of conditionally, like I need you to do that or you're going to get in trouble. It does feel like dad's mad at me if I don't do this. And so if we say I want my kids to be happy adults generally don't need everyone's approval. Unhappy adults are desperately seeking everyone's acceptance and approval. And their daily happiness goes up and down with like, so-and-so said this nice thing to me. Mm-hmm. So-and-so didn't talk to me. I think my boss is unhappy with me. My friends don't like me. My friends love me. Oh, I'm good. Oh, I'm not. Detaching from that is like, I talk about mindfulness a lot. And being able to be mindful of, hold on, where are you seeking your acceptance from right now? If it's from mom and dad, it's contingent upon how well mom and dad communicate every step of the way, which is a really risky ratio, mm-hmm. right? The probability of mom and dad delivering day in, day out at that is not good. We have our own lives and we're going to not be thinking like, oh, I got to go give so-and-so like their daily like acceptance speech,
right?
Or approval speech.
So let's break it down in like a real world example, which is the dishes. And so you can judge my parenting here if you like. I'm asking for judgment. Okay. But so something like that, I feel like this is a family community thing. Let's all help out with the family, right? And so then that could be a scenario where the kid's saying, oh, I need mom or dad's approval. I'm going to be good. I'm going to get their approval by doing the dishes or by not, or, where does that feeling of acceptance, I feel acceptance and why do I want to do these dishes? And so one of my questions I ask my kids when they neglect or aren't interested, I say, hey, will you please name who else in the family you would like to clean up your dishes for you? Mm. Maybe that's shaming. I don't know. But it seems to work. And they're like, okay, good point. Yeah. I'll go do it because it's kind of like mean for me to put that on somebody else, right? Yeah. But to me, I'm just trying to let them understand they're part of a team, a community. And it's like, why would I expect my sibling or somebody else when I could just go put my stuff in the dishwasher, right? Yeah. So is that in conflict with that sort of approval?
No, not at all, because they're not really looking. You're not modeling. I think that's a great example that encourages them.
Do I get a check mark for that?
Yeah. Sweet. Do we have a check mark system?
Right here.
Let's start. First one for Dan.
First one ever. There it is.
You're not shaming. Shaming would be, you're a bad person if you don't do this.
Right.
Right. Everyone else in the family does this, and we're all good. What are you doing? Right. That's like, it could be, it's funny to say it that way, but it's really, that's shaming and manipulative. But if you are invoking empathy and awareness and a sense of ownership, that's super healthy. And that leads to being a healthy human. Is we have a better community and we have a better family when we're conscious of like what we're doing or not doing is impacting on other people. Right. And to say, how does you doing this impact others by asking the question that you did? Who else would you like in the family to clean up after you? Puts it into a proper perspective. It's no longer a chore mom and dad are putting on me. This is my thing in life that makes the most sense for me to take care of. And doing it might not feel good, but it's the absence of maybe feeling bad that makes it good.
Right.
Right? That you're not burdening other people unfairly that didn't do anything wrong. That feels better than knowing that you're getting out of something and someone in your family has to pick up the slack, right? Like very few humans wouldn't experience some sense of guilt from that, and not experiencing guilt is a plus. Even if it's not a huge upside, like she's like, oh my gosh, I am so proud of myself. I did the dishes.
Right.
Unlikely.
Right.
But to not feel bad is a positive, right? You're removing what would be a negative in her experience. And it's teaching ownership and contribution, which is another part of why someone usually feels good. Like they're in their community or in their family. It feels good based on the narrative of I'm doing my part. I'm making the world a better place. Whether someone recognizes that or not needs to be independent, right? Like that's what I want to teach my kids is you might not get the verbal or physical acknowledgement of your effort. That's why you need to be able to calculate that to some extent internally. Like, well, I was the kind of person I wanted to be. I don't think they saw that or they didn't express any sign of that. But I know who I was and I'm proud of that. I want them to have that mechanism versus constantly pinging off of me or someone else to feel good because other people aren't reliable enough and consistent enough to give them that message.
Yeah.
So the practical example.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask for. How do you instill that as a parent?
Yeah, age appropriate, age determining. So 7.
Thank you for using 7. Appreciate that. Limited
capacity to calculate some of these concepts, right? 12, way more capable of understanding what it feels like to be proud of themselves, and already have a lot of examples of being able to reference when someone that you thought should have said good job didn't, and recognizing, oh, that's not always predictable, and I've had a bad coach and a good coach, and I've noticed how it impacts me. I wonder if I can detach from the need, from that positive feedback loop. I'm not cutting myself off from it. I'll receive it when it comes, but I don't need it because I know if I do what I want to do, if I do execute in the ways I want to execute as a human, be nice, be respectful, work hard, follow through, a list of character traits, I'm being the kind of person I want to be. And not everyone's always going to see that. In fact, jerk coaches might not ever acknowledge that. I need to be okay with that.
So let's take a 12-year-old or like a kind of early teen child. How I would assume, and I think from what I've seen from my boys, is that they see in the real world, right, whether it's school or whatever, and that validation or acceptance or feeling proud about themselves, right?
Yeah.
With, oh, I did good on my tests. I made the basket in the game. X, Y, Z, things like that. When those things don't go well, how do you as a parent then model that those things actually don't matter? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they can,
this is really important because if you don't teach that, their well-being is daily attached to these successes or these failures, right? In some cases, relationships or cooperation from others, which they can't control or guarantee. And real quick, later on in life, this turns into a really destructive control habit of thinking earlier on that if you want to feel good, you got to go control things and make them go your way, even though like what does that mean? You can't do that, but they think they do, and they develop that skill set versus making peace with the unfavorable outcome. Like, for example, you have one team's going to win today and one team's going to lose.
Right.
Someone could tie. Very improbable. You're going to either win or you're going to lose.
Yeah.
Which means half the players on the court are going to walk away winning and losing and feeling like a winner or a loser. But if you want to believe you're a winner or a loser based on the score, you will. But if you want to detach from that and say, play hard, play to win, because that's how we set the games up to win. But play for the enjoyment of trying to win and play for the enjoyment of doing your best in your fundamentals, your teamwork, your grades, your work, whatever it is, and then make peace with the outcome. That doesn't mean you don't try to win next time. It doesn't mean you don't learn from the loss. But it's failing to attach my worth to the W.
Right.
Right. To say, if you win, you should celebrate. If you lose, you should be grateful for the chance to try to win and to compete, and be grateful for the opportunity to learn from why you lost. That doesn't always mean there's a valuable lesson in everything, but it's detaching the feedback loop. I am because we cut that win or loss. No, I am human, and I'm proud of myself because I played hard. I was a good teammate, and we lost. Mm-hmm. But what matters most is like I'm being the person, the player, the teammate I want to be, and that I feel like is good for my team and good for my community or my family. And you can have as much drive as you want to win. These aren't in competition with one another. Right. A lot of people do the all or nothing. Like, if you're going to go make peace with losing, you're going to be a loser.
Yeah.
Because you got to be hungry to win. And you can't, how many famous athletes just say they absolutely despise losing, and that's their drive. Right. And so then everyone like assumes like that's what you have to do to win. But the fundamentals of them winning usually aren't like each play thinking I can't lose. It's do this move the best I can, show that hustle, do this thing, right? Having a thirst to win obviously helps. And I would say, why wouldn't you have a thirst to win? That's kind of the point of the game or the test, like do your best, right? But to kind of cut the feedback loop of I am bad, I'm not good enough because of this loss. That's what conditional achievement kind of based parenting tends to create. And then you see it in adulthood, even if they're not playing sports anymore. It's like their review at work or how so-and-so treated them. Well, I feel like they gave me a bad look. They must be upset with me.
So how would you be able to score yourself for the way that you're instilling these things in your kids? And I guess the way I kind of like loaded that question, I feel like body language is such a huge indicator.
Yeah.
So when you see your child, your spouse, coworkers, anybody with body language that you can just visibly see, right? It's like they are wrapped up in the outcome, in the thing, right? And they're just dejected or whatever, versus like, oh, I don't have to be attached to this thing, right? Yeah. Like I could win or lose, I could whatever, and I could just still try hard. So yeah, I guess how much do you think that plays a role in it? Like instilling body language that mirrors what they're thinking in their head as far as I am good enough, I'm a good person, I'm a human, I'm kind, I'm, these basic things versus, that playing out, like whether it's in sports, in school, in an argument, whatever.
Body language oftentimes is a reflection of the narrative and of the thought process, although it is possible for body language to, in some cases, very consciously change the internal space. So let's say your son just lost a game. Shoulders are slouched, heads down, mopey, defeated feel, right? Mm-hmm. And let's say he already agreed to this beforehand. So this isn't in the moment. You guys talked about broadening his shoulders,
right?
Having his chin up, right? And having a facial expression that communicates without even talking, I'm grateful to be out here. Okay, let's say he agreed to that. Lost, buzzer sounds, he had a horrible game, but now he's got to be like, all right, shoulders back straight, chin up, and communicate without saying words, I'm grateful to be out here, okay? That's likely to change his mood.
Right.
Because the narrative in his head is actually focused on these things versus I'm a loser, right? It's really a trick, and not that your shoulders back is like magical.
Right.
It's that you're focused on something that's not like negative, and it does just happen to have a posture of victory and confidence, right? And it's hard to feel like a loser having that posture. We associate it like conditional, like loser, like how the teammate, what football game the other night, quarterback comes up.
I was thinking of that.
Throws his helmet, right? Sits down, towel over his head, right? Yeah. Now, maybe that's his recovery style, blah, blah, blah. But the physical represents the internal usually. You can flip it if someone's conscious of it beforehand. But if, let's say, as a parent, you want to model essentially not attaching self-worth from an outcome like a game or a test, right? You would want to at least align and match their level of emotional space. So they're sad, they're disappointed, they're angry. If you come in, hey, you should be happy, like your legs work and the lights are on in the gym and we got our car starts outside and there's no bombs, like, buddy, it's just a game, right? You're going to fly right over and not going to connect.
Yeah.
Right. So you do have to kind of like drop down a little bit and be like, I know what it's like to lose. It can hurt, especially when you had hopes of winning and now you're feeling that disappointment. Being disappointed is part of being human. Mm-hmm. Everyone knew before the game started, half the guys are going to walk away feeling like a winner and half the guys are going to walk away feeling like a loser. Mm-hmm. But to be able to normalize that behavior and then say, but you're not a loser as a person. You just lost a game, which, by the way, a few million people did today.
Right.
Because there were probably games around the world and most of them ended in a win or a loss. So half of the competitors today on Earth lost. Mm-hmm. You're not a loser. Okay, that's optional. That's a narrative. You lost the game. Did you try hard? Were you a good teammate? Did you feel like you gave your best? And if not, then how do you learn from that? Right? That's also being a good human, is being better and learning. So there's a little nuance, because I'm not saying we shouldn't win or to play to win.
Right.
We shouldn't get into a habit of I have to win to be good.
Right.
I need Dan's
Which
approval.
Our society really pushes, right? Like you see, the Michael Jordan.
Celebrate the winner.
Just his whole documentary on, I took it personal, if I wanted, like the whole, everything was just hardcore, right?
And I mean, I doubt Michael's ever going to listen to this podcast, so we can say whatever the hell we want to say.
Yeah.
He won, I think, 7 national world championships. Right. And he was happy. He looked really happy after each one, but he didn't look happy the rest of the time.
Right.
Was he or was he not? I have no idea.
Right.
But the body language,
demeanor,
and the longevity of his friendships, which wasn't good, would say like, oh, geez, like, are you happy? Was it worth it? Because you don't look very happy.
Right.
Versus the person who's like, they won some, they lost some, but they have great relationships. They joke, they laugh, they learn, they give back. So we celebrate unwisely, unintelligently in lots of ways. We don't require a lot. Like, we don't really know much about any of these people we tend to celebrate.
Right.
And we just assume because they're at the pinnacle of their thing, they're great. And like, really, it's like scoring well on ACT. Like, you might be smart, or you just test really well. Mm-hmm. You might be a great person, or you just won a basketball game.
Right.
And detaching their well-being and their personhood from the activity really sets them up to know how to be happy, independent of these like successes and failures.
Right.
But that doesn't mean we don't prioritize and teach fundamentals for living, right? Like, that's just, people are happier when they contribute to their home and they're a good friend and they do their homework. I've never had a client, never had a kid who wasn't lying when they said they didn't really care about school.
Right.
That's like usually a cover because something else, right? Ranging from BS to really serious. It's usually a cover because the second that kid does get an A on something, they're talking about it. Like, if you didn't care at all, you wouldn't be referencing that. And most people like to feel like they're doing well or prioritizing or pursuing or persevering. But parents get stuck into a trap of like a debate about why they should like school or something. Like, no, you're not going to win that.
Right.
Come back to like, who do you want to be? Right? Like, this is a big thing, especially if like you want something for your kids. It's okay to cast vision, and you're going to model whether you know it or not. But the best questions to ask often, and this is age appropriate, age progressed. Who do you want to be in this situation? Do you want to throw tantrums and not help the family, or do you want to just get along?
So when do you have that conversation?
Well, going back to the de-escalation.
After de-escalation,
right? Nothing above a 5. Usually well after the conflict. If you can quickly ground them and they're not escalated.
Do you think the next day? Because I've been sort of, not that love keeps score, Josh. I know that love doesn't keep score, but I was thinking about, doing this weekly meeting or like weekly hangout session with the family and the kids, and maybe bringing some of those things up. Say, hey, is that how you want to handle that situation next time, or is that too long?
Yeah, no, it's not too long in a weekly meeting, but to get the best results would be.
I'm thinking the meeting's going to go over well. When you say weekly meeting, by the way, the family, it usually goes over well.
Sounds fun.
Can't wait, Dad.
Sounds really
Sounds
fun.
awesome.
Nerd alert.
I need a new name for
Dad's
it.
weekly meeting.
I don't know. We'll think of something.
Yeah. I would say within a day. So that later that day, maybe the next day. The younger they are, the sooner it needs to be. Older they are, the little bit more runway you have. Here, I would ask it this way, and this is important, like takeaway for the listener. If we're reviewing how something went, I would say, did it go how you wanted it to go?
Right.
Were you who you wanted to be in that situation? There's maybe implied judgment. If they really know where you're coming from, they could connect those dots. But it's a really open-ended, neutral question, right? And now you're tapping into not what I think they should be, not backing them into a corner. I'm opening them all the way up to this is your life. This is the world that you're in. And I'm not saying whatever their answer is, it gets the green light, right? Like you hit that kid after, for no reason. Is that who you want to be? Yeah, I want to be the kid. I want to hit kid, or like, oh, we're gonna have some work there.
Yeah, where do we go?
But here? Most people don't want to be that person because it doesn't work well in life, right? Like the person who freaks out, I ask them in my office all the time, well, is that like who you want to be? Well, no, but so no, you don't want to be that. Well, then let's figure out who you do want to be, and let's put effort on just becoming that or being that person versus spotlighting and making them awkwardly go back into how they behaved. If you're trying to instill a lesson, you're still doing a lesson, and actually a more valuable one, to talk about how do you want to do that versus why that happened or why you did it. If you're a coach and you're reviewing a play, you might touch briefly on the bad decision and spend the rest of the time on the good decision. Mm-hmm. This technique, this movement, this collaboration with your teammate, right? Whether it's work or a sport or whatever. But parents tend to spend a lot of time lecturing and critiquing the negative mechanics of the decision,
right?
Instead of bringing to life the solution. Whoa, well, who do you want to be? Well, do you want to hit someone next time? No. Mm-hmm. What would you do if you could do it over again? You could be anything that you'd manifest who you really want to be. What would it look like? And then don't give them a lot of answers. Let their answers kind of guide the progress, just facilitate it. And now you have something to hold them accountable to them that resonates with them because it's their words, not ours.
Right.
And that's hard for a lot of parents. They don't feel like they have time to do that. They don't feel like the kid's trustworthy enough to hand that over. But if they don't, they unintentionally create a gap and a little bit of control battle. I'm going to get you to be this way. And now the kid feels unaccepted for who they are. And now there's this weird control battle and little rebellion versus let's make sure you know who you really want to be, because it's probably in line with who I want you to be. But more importantly, you need to like you.
Right.
If you're just doing it because you think I'm going to like you, that won't work long term. You're going to get to an age where that won't matter. I'm not around, and you're going to be driving around town I can't tell you what I think of you, and you're going to have an empty bucket. Versus you know who you want to be.
So what do you think about then trying to do, I guess maybe nightly check-ins or something, maybe at bedtime or something like that? Because I feel like in our scenario with, the 3 different kids and they're different ages and different stages and so many things going throughout the day, one of those things happens, and to have that conversation, you might not have the time to have that conversation, right? So for example, the 7-year-old meltdown, well, things still need to happen and get to XYZ. You don't get the time to de-escalate, then have the conversation. I don't know, just maybe just that daily check-in at the end, like who do you want to be, or do you feel like you live today how you wanted to be?
I would do it. There's an important balance to strike,
right?
That it's not so often that it becomes mundane and inauthentic,
right?
And it feels like a chore. You want to keep it where it feels vibrant and relevant to the day. And there are a lot of days where it's like there's nothing really there, and it could just be like, I'm glad you had a good day.
Yeah.
Did they do everything the way they want? Definitely not, nor did we. But do we have to talk about it all the time? Probably not, because that's a little tiresome.
Yeah.
And so I think reserving that intentionality to like an event or a dynamic where it's clearly warranted. The rest of the time I would say, I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
I like who you are. I'm glad that you like yourself. I'm glad that you're working on liking yourself. Like just something like that, really light. But if there was an incident, like my daughter, I'd commute quite a bit and taking her to friends in school. And if there's an incident, I was asked, do you have drama? Because, she's 14, there's lots of drama. And usually the answer is yes, not always, but usually it's yes. And so-and-so did this, and then it went to this. And I'll ask, instead of being the detective and trying to come up with you should do this next time, I'll ask, are you proud of how you handled yourself in that?
Yeah.
Or do you like how you did it? Just something that's like introspective for her that can open a door for a deeper conversation, maybe. Or she has it with herself, right? She's like, no, I wish I wouldn't have done that. I got wrapped up in it, and I should have just not said anything.
Yeah.
And then I might say something, I might not, right? Your finger on the pulse. When a lot of parents don't have this dexterity of, is the door open for a lot of back and forth here, or is the door shut and now you're annoying just banging on the door, right? And we talked a little bit about that last time and how to read the situation, but go slower and say less than you think.
Less is more, always.
In this case, less is more. Let the energy and their mood kind of drive how open or how much you cover. Otherwise, you run the risk of just sounding like the Charlie Brown teacher, right, or the adult, where it's it's all mumbling, right? And kids know it. It's typical parent talk, shoulds and shouldn'ts.
We need to make an app for that starts firing off when you start
alarm
sounding like
shocking.
That.
It starts shocking them.
A little shock collar for
wait,
every parent
just
out there.
stop talking.
Yeah.
And you could even say, if you find yourself saying that, do this. Say, I'm sorry, this sounds like pretty generic parent talk, and I'm just going to stop.
I'm just going to go.
You probably already know what I think and feel, so I don't want to annoy you.
Yeah.
And I've said that a lot to Justice, my daughter. Yeah. Hey, you probably I can't say anything without sounding like a stereotypical adult and parent. That's my disclaimer.
Yeah.
Maybe it's still valuable to share, and I'll read the situation. If she's closed off, I'll just be I'm not going to say it. It's just worthless. Because the more I say, the more credibility I lose, potentially.
Right. Yeah. Pick your words wisely is the key there, huh? So I think I would like to reevaluate now what I want for my kids after this conversation, Josh.
Yeah.
Can I get rid of the D1 scholarships?
If they want D1 scholarships, right? You'd say, I want them to be happy.
Yeah, but I think what I got out of this too is maybe I want them to be able to emotionally self-regulate.
Yeah.
I mean,
think the most valuable human thing you could want for your kid, for their life.
Yeah.
D1 might not address how their mind works,
right,
have anything to do with their relationships. They have a scholarship, save dad college tuition, but they're neurotic.
Really small in the big scheme of things.
Yeah, and it has they're obviously they're good. there are good benefits from a disciplined program, right? Getting up early and working out, or there are positive things that come from that. That's not saying that that doesn't lead to a healthy human, but there's a lot more to a healthy human than you got up at 5 and worked out.
Right.
And to say, I want you to have a peaceful mind. I want you to be happy based on research would say long, healthy, maintained relationships and physical health that you feel in control of and that you feel good about. You sleep well, you forgive often, you laugh easily, you set boundaries, you know how to say no because you don't need to please everybody.
Mm-hmm.
If someone said like, what would you download to a kid to make them a healthy adult? That's what I would teach is mindfulness, how not to get totally lost in thought, be aware of your human existence aside from the narrative that's going on, clear on how to manifest kindness, happiness, follow through. And then again, forgive easily. Don't hold grudges, release stress often. Don't hold on to it. Prioritize people that are good for them. Do hobbies that make them laugh and feel like productive.
Mm-hmm.
The things that we know feel good.
Yeah.
Right? Go parent those. Go
Right.
prioritize those. But if we're not conscious, we just react out of fear. Like, oh no, they're going down our road and that means they're going to be this and they can't be happy. And then we just come in with stupid, really generic like statements. Like you're going to be, it used to be when we were kids, it was like, you're going to be flipping burgers
right
the rest of your life. Right. Now it's like, they're not even working. Like that'd be great if they had a job flipping burgers. Now it's like, you're in the basement. You're going to be in the basement,
Mom,
forever.
Meatloaf. Yeah. Just for days.
Yeah.
For years.
So I know it's a 10,000 foot or 30,000 foot topic, but it's happening daily. What are you really instilling, prioritizing, and growing in your children? And does it really show up in your life? Is it true in your life?
Yeah.
Right? Are you really happy because of those things? And if not, have the courage to release what you've been trying to prioritize. You don't have to go all or nothing.
Yeah.
Right? Still get up because you got swim practice or you have that test that you said you want to study for. I'm going to hold you accountable to that. But not with all the pressure and like threat of or else.
Right.
Right? Just say like, well, you'll feel better getting a better grade. I don't know. You might not be any smarter or happier or anything, but we all know like getting an A feels better than a C, or a C is better than an F. So like, I guess like, what do you feel like you would like on the other side of this?
Right.
That is wise parenting that really helps them take ownership of it versus a patronizing control system that says you can't do this unless you get an A.
Well, and I think for the parents first, just to ask themselves, what do they want for their kids? How often do people ask themselves that?
Yeah.
Right.
And the courage to go a few layers deep after, right? I would say, why?
Yeah.
Why I want my kids to be happy. Why? And what does that mean? Like, what's happiness look like in your life?
Mm-hmm.
And does it really deliver the promise? And I know that, not surprisingly, this probably freaks a lot of parents out of like, oh, geez, I'm not like happy.
Right.
How am I expecting my kids to feel good when I'm propagating this plan that hasn't worked for me?
Yeah.
And I know we can't give all the answers every time, but to be aware of that, and then to say, you just be nice, love them, be nice to them. You I hear this. You hear the phrase a lot. Don't be their friend, be their parent, right? And if research is accurate, the healthiest, happiest people have long sustained relationships. That's not unique to just their friends. That includes their family too. The concept is rebelling it's saying don't be their friend is meaning you don't hold them accountable. But good friendships hold friends accountable. Good friends have boundaries, right? So really it's be a good person in this relationship.
Yeah.
Don't be preoccupied if it's friendly or not friendly. Like kids are better humans having great relationships with their parents. It doesn't matter if you're friends or not. Like there is no problem being a friend with your kid.
Right.
As long as you don't enable or create entitlement or are afraid to hold them accountable. Like that element of parenting is crucial, like a coach or a teacher isn't a good coach and teacher if they're just high-fiving and having a good time.
Right.
But you can absolutely high-five and have a good time and say, you got to run another lap. You have to come in and make up that test. Like you need to do better. I know you can do better, and high five,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I know it's a big parenting philosophy subject, but I don't want parents to think it's wrong to be nice and get along and laugh and have a great relationship. A great relationship has accountability and expectations in it, but it's balanced with respect and reciprocity in the relationship.
Yeah. And I mean, I would add that on to one of my wants as well. Just I want relationships with my kids.
Yeah.
Like just that. Like for the rest of my life, that's all I really want, right?
Yeah.
It's
Who does? What parent doesn't want that?
Like,
and what's going to keep a relationship alive?
Yeah.
Not bossing them and always scoring everything they do, right? Treating them respectfully and allow them to show up as a unique person. Age progressive, right? So like 5, 6, 2, 3, you're like, no, you're going to your room. I love you, but this is not appropriate behavior. Mm-hmm. And 15, 16, 20, 30, it adjusts, but you foster and protect the relationship versus just like, you're where I watched that Predators documentary on Netflix, and it shows like moms basically like raising little ones, and it's basically survival skills, right? Like number one priority, survival skills. As soon as you're able to take care of yourself, you're out.
Right.
I don't know how kind their relationship is because I don't speak cougar or polar bear, but our parenting goals aren't as clear as like just stay alive, kid.
Right.
Like, well, we've advanced a lot as a society. It's not just stay alive, but to have good relationships and have longevity of health and relationship. And we want that relationship with them too. And so it makes sense that you'd prioritize that now. At 25, they're not going to forget what you said when they were 15 or 12.
Right.
They could mature and forgive it maybe, but parent them now in a way that you'd have a relationship with them at 18, 20, 30. And that takes a lot of like focus and concentration as a parent. You don't just get to say the dumb parenting things.
Right.
And for that to happen.
Well, I love it, Josh. It's a nice little check-in, I think, probably for everybody, for the listener, for everyone, just to ask yourself,
often,
what type of parent do you want to be and what do you want for your kids, right?
Yeah.
And just,
what are we shooting for here? People doing business.
Yeah.
What's our mission? What's our 1 year, 3 year, 5 year? All the time. Like we're raising humans, right? It seems really, really important. But like, what are you trying to prioritize? And how are you delivering on that? And does it deliver in the ways that you want? Sometimes there's not a clear answer. Sometimes just the question itself is just a really good process and checkpoint. But I want everyone to be aware of that dynamic for sure.
Yeah. Well, awesome. I think that's all the time we have for today. Thank you very much, Josh.
Thank you, Dan.
That's great. Yeah. And we'll see you on the next one. Pretty good parent.
Yeah. Pretty good parent.
Pretty good parent.
Just pretty good.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
All right. Be good, everyone. Do we have a tagline for
we need
parents?
One. Don't be an idiot. Be pretty good.
Yeah. Don't be an a-hole.
How about just be nice.
Just be nice.
When you don't know what else to do, just be nice. Let's do that.
Yeah. Be nice, and we'll see you next time.
Love it.
All right. Thank y'all.
Signing off.